From the Channel 4 studios in Boston, this is WBZ News This Morning.
All right, well, it is a new campaign that is out right now here that we are looking at coming up here. And we'll be talking about this here in a second. In the Bay State, aimed at educating people about mental illness. Our own John Keller has a conversation with two experts from McLean Hospital in Belmont.
Well, good morning. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our viewers. We really value your patronage. Well, as wonderful as this time of year can be, it can also be a very difficult time for people who suffer from mental illness. Nearly 1 in 5 adults, more than 40 million Americans, deal every day with conditions like bipolar disorder, depression, and schizophrenia. So our segment this week is devoted to informing you about this massive public health problem and, hopefully, empowering both those who are ill and those who are not to do something about it. Let me introduce you to our guests this morning. To my immediate left, Meg G. is a mental health advocate who deals with borderline personality disorder. Meg, welcome.
Thank you. Also
joining us is Christine Tebaldi, a nurse practitioner and director of psychiatric emergency services for McLean Hospital in Belmont. Christine, welcome.
Good morning.
Glad you could join me. So, Meg, let me start with you. You first started suffering panic attacks way back in middle school, but it wasn't until after college that you were finally diagnosed and started to get effective treatment. Thinking back on your own experience, what would you hope to see change about the way mental illness sufferers see themselves and are seen by others?
I think that a lot of people treat it as though it's a 4-letter word, and it's not. It's not something to run from. When a person's really struggling, they need the opposite. They need a good, strong support system. And if they don't have that, it's going to be a lot harder for them. If you think someone's struggling, pick up your phone, shoot them a text, ask them how their day's going. It might seem like something very small, but to them, it shows that someone cares, and that can totally turn the day around for the person.
How did you sort of overcome that anxiety, that stigma that attaches to this?
When I first heard about this campaign, I was a little iffy on if I was going to participate. And unfortunately, I had a friend whose brother passed away this summer by suicide. And at his wake, I looked around and thought, this could have been my family, this could have been my friends. And it kind of was a wake-up call to think, you know, I don't want this to happen to people anymore. This kid thought he was so alone, so he took his life. And I just would like to see more people not think that they're so alone, that that's their only option.
And understand the urgency of acting.
Yeah.
You mentioned the campaign. You're referring to this Deconstructing Stigma campaign that McLean Hospital is involved with. Christine, tell me a little bit about that. What is the goal of that? People, by the way, many people who've traveled through Logan recently may have noticed a poster display with the true life stories of Meg and others. Tell us a little bit about what the purpose of all this is.
Sure. It's an amazing campaign, and it's between Terminal B and C at Logan Airport, and there are 8-foot panels with fantastic pictures of participants such as Meg and telling their story. And the goal is really to reduce stigma. Over 75% of individuals who have a mental illness have reported that they've experienced stigma. And stigma can really impact somebody's willingness, capacity to access service, tell a friend, talk to their primary care provider, and get help. And the hope of this campaign is to really reduce that stigma and help individuals to be able to access service and tell their story.
I noticed some of these posters are of celebrities. Famous rapper is in there. Others are of private citizens like you, Meg. That's an interesting message, I think, for people to understand this can touch anyone from any walk of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really powerful. You'll notice that all the celebrities simply have their first name. Individuals like Meg simply have their first name, and it really is in an attempt to normalize that this can touch any one of us. We believe that, to the best of our knowledge, this is the first time a psychiatric hospital has partnered with like-minded organizations to really do a public education campaign focused on mental health.
All right, let's take our break. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about steps people can take, the signs to watch for, that kind of thing. So take a breath, and we will continue our conversation in just a moment. So please stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking with Christine Tebaldi, Director of Psychiatric Emergency Services for McLean Hospital in Belmont, and Meg G., a mental health advocate who deals with borderline personality disorder. And Meg, you were telling me before we started the taping here that since this Deconstructing Stigma campaign began with these posters, people telling their personal stories that are up at Logan Airport, you've gotten a lot of feedback from people. People are reaching out to you. Tell me a little bit about those conversations. What do they want to know, and what's the most effective advice you feel you can offer them?
Well, I think a lot of them have kind of their entire lives been embarrassed about their diagnosis and don't want to talk about it, because who wants to admit to having something that the entire world kind of views as crazy? So that's why we need to eliminate that stigma so that people will open up and actually talk about it and get the help that they need. I think anyone who's struggling, living with a mental illness, is so incredibly strong. I know firsthand how hard it is to wake up every day and fight with your own brain. But it is possible to move forward. I think one of the big things for me was getting up each day, going to work, and having a purpose, and also finding the right person to talk to and learning tools so that when I am in a bad place, I know how to help myself.
For you, who was the first person that you could really share this with? A parent?
My dad, yes.
Yeah. And then was that sort of the key to opening up to treatment and getting help?
Yes. At first in high school, I struggled, as I said, for pretty much the majority of my life, and not until after college I was diagnosed.
You said in an interview I read you used to hide out in the nurse's office.
Oh, yeah, I lived in the nurse's office all the time. That's where I had trouble even just getting up and getting to school. And I guess it's to look at, it is possible for recovery. 18 months ago, laying in a hospital bed, I never thought that I would be here, but I am, so it is possible.
Christine, is her story typical? Or is there such a thing as a typical story of mental illness and recovery?
Yeah, I think it's hard to actually say that it's typical. I think what's so amazing about all of these stories that are being shared is the notion of recovery, and that with proper help and support, people can get better, and that's really remarkable. And the goal of the campaign is really to not only reduce stigma, but promote recovery-oriented concepts.
What's the biggest stereotype about mental illness and the treatment that you can get for it that you'd like to dispel right now?
Well, I think that a lot of people, Meg alluded to this, that not everybody thinks of you in the same way when you're dealing with a mental illness. And one thing to dispel is this treatment is just like any other healthcare treatment. And if you are having a physical complaint, we'd encourage you to go to your primary care provider, to talk with family and friends, and get the care that you need. And the same is true for mental health conditions. I
want to ask you in just a second for a contact point for people who want more information than we have time to give today. But I want to ask you, first of all, thank you for doing this and for being so brave to do this. How are you feeling now? What's your outlook toward life now?
I mean, it's pretty amazing. Being there, the opening at Logan was this past Friday, and it was very emotional and a little bit overwhelming seeing all these people, these incredibly brave people, opening up about their life and trying to help others do the same. I really think that with each time someone opens up about their mental illness, we'll be one step closer to eliminating that stigma and, in the end, saving some people's lives.
And Christine, if people want to know more, where do they go?
So deconstructingstigma.org is a website that has all of the 40 participants' stories and has facts about mental health conditions, where to get additional help. And it's really powerful. If you can see this in person or on the website, you'll be really impressed with the stories being told.
And this display will be up at Logan for how long?
I'm not sure.
I think it's still unknown.
Okay.
How long it's going to be up?
Hopefully indefinitely. Obviously, it's having an impact.
Yes.
Thank you both for being here, and especially thanks to you, for your courage and for sharing. You're doing a lot of good with that. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And thank you very much for joining me. Now, time to turn it back over to my colleagues for more WBZ News.
Had a great conversation there, John. We appreciate it.